All right, everybody, this is my update for Sunday, November 8th. We're going to talk a little COVID, going to talk a little bit about the election, going to talk about stimulus as well at the end. If you've been following my stuff for a while now, you kind of know my feelings about lame duck stimulus. Yes, we got good news last week that Mitch McConnell does want lame duck stimulus, but then on the other hand, there are some pretty big challenges to getting lame duck stimulus before the end of the year. But let's start with COVID. Over 126,000 new cases of COVID-19 reported in the United States yesterday, with over 1,000 deaths. As I said in the live stream yesterday, this past Wednesday, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows tested positive for COVID, as did 4 other members of the White House staff. And in terms of local COVID restrictions, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said that State University of New York students will not return to campus after Thanksgiving. They'll just be doing online learning for fear of spreading COVID-19. New Jersey Governor Philip Murphy kind of hinted that there might be more lockdowns there. He said, "We're working on making sure that we've got a right balance between strategic scalpel-like actions and some broader actions that we will almost certainly take sooner than later." COVID-19 continues to spike in Europe as well. The Prime Minister of Greece has announced a 3-week nationwide lockdown beginning yesterday. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that he is afraid that the virus is doubling faster than they could ever conceivably add capacity. Hospitals are overflowing in France, Italy, and Belgium. Belgium, in fact, is allowing some medical personnel to keep working, even though they themselves have tested positive for COVID-19. Romania is closing schools. Portugal has declared a state of emergency, and Poland is hitting COVID-19 death records. Switzerland is deploying military personnel to help hospital staff, and Denmark is slaughtering millions of minks for fear that a mutation of COVID-19 has infected them, and that spread could potentially spread to humans. All right, now onto the election. Essentially, all major media outlets have called the 2020 presidential race for former Vice President Joe Biden. Thank you, by the way, to those of you who hopped on my live stream yesterday when that news broke. I saw a lot of comments in there saying the election isn't over yet, and technically that's true, right? Votes are still being counted. Results have not yet been certified. There will be recounts. The Electoral College has not voted yet. The Trump team is exploring legal options further in Pennsylvania and other states, including a new lawsuit in Maricopa County, Arizona. But what the media is reporting right now is its projection, and it looks fairly airtight at this point. And look, I'm all for the Trump team exploring their legal options. That is their right. But just looking at how it's gone for them last week in terms of challenging results, they weren't able last week to provide much substantial evidence of the kind of widespread voter fraud that might be claimed right now, at least before the judges who rejected some of their lawsuits. So my perspective here is that we will see former Vice President Joe Biden taking the Oval Office on January 20th. Feel free to disagree, of course. Yesterday, former U.S. President Barack Obama said of his former Vice President Joe Biden, "I know he'll do the job with the best interests of every American at heart, whether or not he had their vote." Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer called Biden yesterday to congratulate him. Some Republicans are sticking to their guns that Trump still has a chance, while others like Senator Mitt Romney and former U.S. President George Bush have congratulated Biden. Trump did not speak to the press yesterday, but he let us all know his thoughts on Twitter, basically tweet after tweet about how he thinks that there are many illegal votes and that he's going to continue to contest the results of this election. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez spoke to the press for about an hour after Biden's victory was projected by the media, and she basically called out moderate Democrats for blaming progressive ideas within the Democratic Party, such as those espoused by AOC herself, for their losses or near losses in the House. AOC said that she fears the Biden administration, like Democratic administrations past, might have gotten excited about progressive ideas in order to win the election. She referred to progressive ideas as grassroots, but she fears that those ideas might be quietly abandoned after the election. AOC's tone was of slight frustration. If you saw that interview yesterday, you know what I mean. It seems that she has this careful optimism, obviously, about Biden winning the election. She said, "Thankfully, we won't be in a free fall to hell anymore." Like, in her opinion, we weren't under Trump, but she's still cautiously optimistic about what the Biden administration will mean to progressives like her and the place that progressives themselves will have in the administration. Now, before we get into stimulus, let's talk about what both Kamala Harris and Joe Biden said last night in their victory speeches. Let's start with Harris, since she spoke first. Harris thanked the campaign staff and poll workers, the people of this country. She expressed sympathy for the struggles of the people of this country and said that the people chose Joe Biden. She called him a healer, a uniter, a tested and steady hand, a man with a big heart and who loves with abandon. She thanked her family and acknowledged her late mother, as well as the history of women's rights in the political process in the United States, from the passing of the 19th Amendment to the Voting Rights Act. She said that while she may be the first woman to hold the office of vice president, she won't be the last. Then Biden spoke. He pledged to be a president who seeks not to divide but to unify, one that doesn't see red and blue states but the United States. He said he will work with all his heart to win the confidence of the whole people, and that he sought the office of the presidency to restore the soul of America and to rebuild the middle class and to make the United States respected around the world again. He praised his wife Jill as well as Kamala Harris, in addition to those who volunteered and worked for his campaign. He said now is the time to put away harsh rhetoric, to lower the temperature, to see each other again, to listen to each other again, to make progress, to stop treating our opponents as our enemies, because we are not enemies. We are Americans, and now is the time to heal. He described what he sees as the great battles of our time. This is similar to the mandates that he spoke about on Friday night. These great battles of our time that Biden talked about was the battle against COVID-19, the battle to build prosperity, the battle for health care, the battle to achieve racial justice, the battle to save the climate, and the battle to restore decency, defend democracy, and give everybody in this country a fair shot. And he said the first battle that must be won is the battle against COVID-19. He said that we cannot repair the economy, restore our vitality, or relish life's most precious moments, hugging a grandchild, birthdays, weddings, graduations, all the moments that matter to us, until we get the virus under control. He said that on Monday, tomorrow, he will work with scientists to take the Biden-Harris COVID plan and convert it into an action plan that starts on Inauguration Day. Does this mean a crazy nationwide lockdown? I don't think so. I think there's a little bit of fear mongering there personally. I think we will see sterner recommendations from the CDC. I think we might see national standards such as, state X, your cases kind of hit this threshold. Now we recommend that, you shut down these businesses, you restrict these businesses, but, these businesses are okay to continue as usual and things like that. Instead of essentially just leaving it up to states to come up with these guidelines on their own, I think we might see more of a national consistency there, but I don't think a national lockdown would be appropriate. That's my personal opinion. If certain states and certain localities are managing COVID-19 well without a full lockdown, I would not want to see one imposed. Again, feel free to disagree. Back to Biden's victory speech, he went on to make unifying statements about Democrats and Republicans. He said that we need to make sure that everyone in this country can reach their dreams, to make the promise of America real for everybody, no matter their race, ethnicity, identity, or disability. He said we are at an inflection point. Right now, we have the opportunity to defeat despair and to build a nation of prosperity and purpose in this battle for the soul of America. He said it is time for our better angels to prevail and to lead globally, not by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. He concluded with a hymn titled On Eagle's Wings and called for a nation united, strengthened, and healed. In terms of stimulus, if you've been following me the past few days and my updates, you kind of know my thoughts on stimulus during the lame duck session. Here's the deal, right? Historically speaking, not much legislation, much less massive legislation with $1 trillion plus price tag gets passed during the lame duck session, particularly during a lame duck session when the incumbent president's party loses. If there is major legislation, it will likely take place after the new president takes office. Think back to Obama in 2009. We know that both Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi have expressed a desire to get stimulus done before the end of the year, along with some Senate Republicans. But the chance of whether or not this happens, well, it looks fairly slim. Why? One, because assuming that Trump is not victorious in his various legal challenges to the results of the 2020 election, it looks like he and his administration will be leaving the White House in just about 2.5 months. And it's not clear at this point whether or not they will continue to want to negotiate with Nancy Pelosi on stimulus before the end of the year. They have very little motivation to do so. It is reported that the White House may simply negotiate stimulus with Mitch McConnell, who wants skinny if there is lame duck stimulus at all. He views the jobs report that came out last week showing 6.9% unemployment as stellar. He thought the Q3 GDP showed a showed a recovery in the economy, and he thinks that smaller, more targeted stimulus is what we need, if there is stimulus at all, before the end of the year. Of course, Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to hear that. She doesn't think that that is appropriate at all. So it seems that the two sides are further away as they ever were on second stimulus. 2 days ago, as I told you in my live stream yesterday, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow was asked questions about lame duck stimulus and confirmed that at this point the White House is only speaking to Mitch McConnell. He did not outright say that they are not going to talk to Nancy Pelosi anymore during the lame duck session, but he kind of hinted at that. Now, it's true that only about 13 Republican Senate votes would be necessary to push through big stimulus in the Senate before the end of the lame duck session. However, it's not clear that Republican senators would be very interested in a stimulus bill much larger than the skinny bills that the Republicans have already put forth on the Senate floor. And let's say that one of those skinny bills somehow passes the Senate, even though Democrats are opposed to it. That bill would die in the House. Nancy Pelosi has said as much. Okay, is there a chance that 13 Republican senators could get on board with big stimulus during the lame duck session before the end of the year? Not likely. I think if there was a chance of that, it would take a lot of kind of convincing by President Trump. But with an election loss, Trump has kind of lost his influence in the Senate. He's going to be gone in 2.5 months, right? Doesn't have the influence. That is even if Trump will still push for big stimulus himself before the end of the year. Okay, so my personal sentiments right now, unless we see a huge shift, either in the mind of Nancy Pelosi, right, to accept something a bit smaller than what she's been pushing for Stephen Mnuchin, unless we see Mitch McConnell and other Republican senators being open to something larger than a skinny bill that could appease Nancy Pelosi, and unless we see something from the White House indicating signs that they would like to push for something larger than a skinny bill during the lame duck session. Forgive the distraction. I am taking care of my son this morning because my wife is... she's out. She has something to do. But basically, what's my sentiment about lame duck stimulus? I don't really feel it. Let's just be honest. Republicans want something skinny. If any bill passes through the Senate during the lame duck stimulus, it will be a skinny bill, and we know that such a bill would very likely die in the House because Nancy Pelosi has expressed that she does not think that a skinny bill is what the country needs right now. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.